When I first decided that I wanted to learn how to trade and I started my journey of learning, one of the first things I heard traders talk about was trend lines. And I thought it was great. But at some point after that, as I continued to learn, I got more into indicators and things like market structure and just trying to learn all that I could to the point to where it was almost confusing. And at some point, I was just using indicators alone and it felt like something was missing and my trading results weren't that great. I was still profitable using certain indicators from Easy Algo, but what I found was that I needed something more. And one of the better traders in our community group was using trend lines, and he's one of our best traders in there. And I wasn't sure how he used them, but he showed some screenshots of him using them, and it just opened my eyes because I was really wondering why I'd been trying to trade with indicators for so long, and then somebody else that's so skilled is using such a simple thing as trend lines, and their trades are obviously very successful. So I started going back to the basics at some point. After I had learned so much about trading, I'm like, I'm going to use trend lines more and add them to my current strategy because I was trying all different types of strategies and they were great, but there was just something missing. And, you don't always hear about it, but I think trend lines are becoming something that I use often. And probably the vast majority of the time I use trend lines now, and they're very effective. And I've seen substantial improvements with my trading because of it. So what you see here is TrendX, an indicator from Easy Algo, and it tells you like previous day lows and daily pivots and like a daily like resistance level 1 and 2 and 3, and this red line is the daily R3 resistance level 3. And so what you see here is price was coming up to it and rejecting, and it rejected twice, and then it was just kind of going up, kind of inching up like stairs almost. And I looked at it and I'm like, I bet you all the wicks and candle bodies intersect with a trend line. And so I drew a trend line on it, and I see this happen so often now with TrendX or other key levels. It could be any key level here, and I'll show you some other instances, but this is also on a 3-minute time frame. So this works on all time frames. You will notice patterns like this where price is being wedged up against resistance or pushed down into support, and all of a sudden you have like a triangle, a wedge, and you have a trend line pushing into it, and price is tapping on one side more than the other. In this case, it kept hitting the trend line. It could barely make it. And then as it got close to the resistance level, again, it had this big wick, like an inverted hammer candle, and or dragonfly doji, one of the inverted dragonfly doji or something. And so anyway, it didn't want to go through resistance. It came back down, broke the trend line, and then it tried to come back up for a bearish retest with another big wick right on the trend line. And when you draw trend lines, you want to see price interacting with it. And I'll show you other trend lines on different time frames that'll make it more visible. But in this, I just wanted to show that it works on low time frames. And you usually get a break and then a retest. And then you get a trend change. And so there was a big dump here after that trend line break, after the retest. So this is very common. And that's why I want to share this with you as a trader, because if you're having troubles, you might find that adding trend lines can help you tremendously. It makes it so simple. And, you don't want to neglect the simplicity of some of these trading techniques. So I'll look at another one. A trade I took just a couple days ago. It was on Orca, and I was trading on a 3-minute time frame, and it was a very similar situation as I just showed. I took this trade and made like 147% profit. I don't really need TrendX on this one because I was using different levels as my key levels. I seen this thing pumped because one of my friends told me about it, and it wasn't even on my watch list. and he was looking for a trade on it. And so I started looking at it with him, and basically I started drawing out my lines. Like this green line here is a 1 hour opposing level, and price got above it. So I was like, ooh, this is bullish, but how far will it go? And so it got up here, and I had drawn a 4 hour opposing level from previous price action, and price was approaching that as resistance. And there was also a 1 hour level here where a 1 hour candle had closed, and price just didn't want to get above it, where it hit up here, rejected, hit here, rejected here, and it was doing the same thing. And I was like, it's in a wedge, it's getting higher, but it's not going above the resistance. So I drew a trend line, and I started to see things. I was like, it's hitting the trend line a lot. It's probably going to break to the downside. And I got in a little late because it happened so fast. And I noticed that as this was happening, there was a bear div on the RSI. The money flow was coming out. It was showing, the signs of it wanting to break the bottom. And then I seen this. Price went, or that's not price, the fast MA tried to go above the money flow, but it couldn't hold, and it just went right back below. And right around there, I was like, this thing's going to drop. And it did. Like as soon as this happened, I was watching it happen. I was looking at it, and it had this big candle go down. But as it started, I was like, this is a strong break, and I got in. I believe it or not, I used a limit order, and I got in like right here on a limit order. And it was a good entry for a limit order and not a market order. But I got in, and it just kind of dumped. And then, like when it got down here, it was probably around 100% profit almost. And then it started going up, and I'm like, should I get out? Should I take profit now? And I thought I'd give it a chance, because usually when a trend line breaks, you get somewhat of a reversal typically. And so when I was holding it, I seen this happen. I was like, well, I'll just wait and see if this FASTA making hold above this middle band, and it couldn't. It did the same thing. So like right here on TDIX, it rejected bullish sentiment, and it rejected here. So I held it, and it went all the way down to this green line, which was my take profit. It made 147% profit on that. So that's, most of that trade was taken because of that trend line. So you really shouldn't underestimate those. There were some other ones. I'm going to look at some bullish scenarios too, and look at some random stuff. Fart coin is one I've been looking at off and on recently, and I think this was a higher time frame if I remember right. Yeah. So Fart coin had like a very slow, gradual trend line. And one thing you can do is, if you're going to draw a trend line, you notice price going down and just kind of at an angle, and the tops are intersecting with what you think might be a line, you can start drawing lines and kind of try to get it to touch. And then if you're on like an hourly and it's doing a lot of this, then check a higher time frame and it'll look better. And really, you want to play around with your trend lines. Let's do this. And you see here, when I put it on the 4 hour, the candles were wicks on it. On the 1 hour, it looked like some candles closed above it. But that really helps me when I draw a trend line and I see wicks on the trend line but not candle closes. I can usually get the trend line so precise when I do that, especially if I draw the trend line so that the trend line hits the candle bodies or just the wicks. Not really the full body, but like close to the body, but mostly wick. And like it did here. And I drew this basically so it hit these wicks, and a bunch of spots here, here, and here. And so it doesn't look like much. You might say, oh, this thing's dumping and bottoming out. Well, it just broke a 4 hour trend line, which doesn't look like much, but it looks like it's actually breaking out, and it might reverse and go up for a little while, enough to place a couple trades on it at least. So what I did here is I started looking for support and resistance levels. I also knew that there was a bullish divergence on it, which I'm not going to talk about that as much in this here and then here as well, from here to here and here to here. But I basically noticed that the important thing was there was like a support level here, this green rectangle. I drew that. It was one of the first things I drew. And I was like, price went down below and then it got above it. And, typically this is a liquidity sweep and there's probably a key level here. I often know if there's a key level in the area when there's a big wick somewhere nearby. Usually that means there's a key level here somewhere. So in this case, it was bouncing on support and price was still coming down under the trend line, and it even tried to break but got back above it. It was kind of like a fake out liquidity sweep. And I was drawing lines trying to figure out what was going on, what the key level was. I think that on a lower time frame, this here looks just right. But this red line isn't my focus. The thing is, price was pushing down under the downtrend line and then eventually broke it. And you see reactions to the price was reacting to it. And here, like at the breakout, this is a really interesting scenario, by the way, but at the breakout, price went above and came back down to retest. And then when it bounced, it had a big bounce. So when you have a strong reaction like that, and a matter of fact, if you check the volume, you'll see that volume was increasing here, right through here. There was more green bars in this area, and it was red over here, but over here it was green, and it was higher. There's some higher volume up through here, really, right around this breakout time here. We're starting to get higher bars than this moving average on the volume. So that looked good. And what I find sometimes is you get a retest that comes back down and tests the trend line, but other times, instead of testing the trend line, it'll test a horizontal. In this case, it was an order block. And believe it or not, this was a very bullish sign, because this, I would have expected price to come back down, reject here and come back down to this and test it. But that didn't happen. Instead, it had the breakout and then it had a nice wick right on this. This was a bearish order block if price would have hit here and then rejected. But instead it got above it. It broke this order block and got above it and then had this big candle. So this was really nice looking when it did that, when Fartcoin broke out. And you'll have that sometimes, because this last green candle before these red ones, that's a bearish order block, a supply zone. And when price goes under it, that would be resistance, like where it was here. So anyway, you'll see some interesting stuff happening as price is, hitting trend lines and getting ready to break out. It may just bounce off of the trend line, and other times it may have a reaction to these other levels, which I had all drawn out just in case. So that's why I had these order blocks marked with the gray rectangles. So that was a simple one to know that it broke out by seeing it get above this and do what it did here. And that's a high time frame scenario, so it's probably still, probably going to have a little retracement and then go up again. As a matter of fact, the RSI is high, and this isn't financial advice, but it's possible that it could just make a bullish shark fin here while the money flows so high, and then come up and maybe test this opposing level or something. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. Like if it tapped it maybe with the little shark fin and then went off some more. So that's another one. That's a bullish scenario, and why I change my time frame to get my trend line precise. So I'm trying to keep this video on topic and as short as possible, but let's look at another one. These are more random. This one is, as a matter of fact, I've seen this one before, And this is an example of why you want to sometimes you want to, in many cases, wait for a retest. And let's get rid of the volume really quick. But here you see something that you might not see unless I point it out. So it is going down, and you have, some touches on this trend line, but it went up like it was going to hit here and then bounce, but it didn't. It failed. So actually, maybe let's try here. Yeah, I think in this case it does want to go to the top, but you want to see where the most touches are, and then as it gets down to it, you'll start to see it getting very reactive to that trend line. As a matter of fact, this thing looks like it could it could break out soon for real, but who knows. I might have to save this one for later. But what the point is of this one is, it came up like it was going to break out, and it didn't hold. Instead, the RSI was low, and it didn't want to hold. It went under the 50, and it wasn't sustaining an RSI above the 50. So, it came back down, and instead of being able to hold it, it's possible there was some sort of support here, and it lost it. It was support here, here, and then it fell when it went under at that time. And right here tried to hold it, but then it couldn't. So it also fell through the trend line. So it wasn't ready to break out. But you can do things like this yourself. It's not hard, and it'll help you understand really the direction of the trend. And even if you did trade a breakout, you could have scalped it and then got out. But if the price is coming back down towards the trend line, you really need to pay attention to see if it bounces on it, because it may fall through. Like in this case, it failed to break out. So that's a failure to break out on a trend line. And as a matter of fact, I am going to keep watching this one. And let's just create a alert on that one. And one more. I wanted to look at this one. It's pretty simple. I just kind of looked at it for a couple seconds, before I decided to record this. It's a recall because it's a newer one that I don't know much about, and I'm starting to look at it and do some TA on it. And I noticed this one appears to be having a breakout, but it's just going sideways. And so on this one, I'll just use some other time frame. You had your downtrend, and this big pump here. Let's see, where should I draw it? See, sometimes you're not going to get it right the first time. Now, this is a good one. This is actually good the first time. So basically, I'm drawing the trend line so it touches on some of the candles, and there's reactions to it. It probably could have went just a little lower and then hit this wick, but I'm not trying to get too technical with this one. So there are a lot of reactions here, and I know it's a good trend line because you start seeing stuff like this, like heavy rejections from it when it hits it. And then, like in this case, because I found this late, I mean, this would have been enough. This would have been 1, 2, 3 touches, maybe 4 down here. And that's really all you need, at least 3 touches to a trend line to know that it's in a good spot and to see reactions to it. In this case, it broke out and then retested and had a big bounce. So that, looks bullish, but it didn't reverse. It bounced on it, and then it went sideways. So in that case, what I did, I drew a 4-hour order block, and I'm waiting, because oftentimes when I see this happen, it had the reaction of the trend line. But, you know, this thing's been coming down for a long time, and it looks like it's starting to level out to where the moving averages are going to start to catch up with it. Maybe not that one, but I've got other moving averages. Maybe it'd be on a lower time frame because there's not enough data to do it on the 4-hour for the 800 EMA. But anyway, now it's just kind of going sideways and consolidating, and it's inching down here to this bullish order block, and I bet you there's going to be a reaction to it. So I say that because when last time price bounced from here, it was big candles with really high volume. So if price makes it down to this spot here, there's a really good chance that it's going to go up again. If not, well, I may just look at different levels. It may go for liquidity or something. So that's trend lines in a nutshell, and why I do mine the way I do. The trend lines don't need to start from the top. They don't, in some cases, maybe I'll look at one more on a different list. Was one, yeah, this one here. Sometimes they do this. Let's get some of this lines off the screen. And this is a daily or a weekly. Yeah, I think it's a weekly, but basically, like, you don't always get a trend line like this, but sometimes you do. And when you get one that's this big, it usually happens before a big move is probably brewing. Not in every case. Sometimes tokens just die and then it goes sideways, but this trend line started at the all-time high, and then it had a rejection here, and then when you get zoomed in, you see another touch here, and then a touch here. So you've got your 3 touches. And on this one, the only reason I was looking at it is because it's on Bitfunded, but basically it's had 3 or 4 rejections of this trend line. But look, it could, I'd say in time, in a week's time, it will get close to this trend line. And I've also looked at my Fibonacci levels, and I've got my key levels marked out. So I'm watching this one like a hawk. But basically, yeah, that's trend lines and how I do mine, and it has improved my trading a lot. I still use my indicators. I love my TDIX. I don't trade without this for confirmations, but trend lines really help me tell when the trend is going to change, and it helps me with reversals even on low time frames. So that's the message. I hope this helped you, and if you have any questions, you can ask questions in the comments or message me in our Discord. And if you're not a member of our Discord community, look in the description of this video, and I've got some links for you. They are affiliate links because I'm a mentor with the group, but it doesn't change the price of what it costs to join our group. So you're welcome to join if you want to learn to trade like us. Yeah, so contact me if you want to know more. Thanks for watching.